Hello and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the history of another big guitar company, one that celebrated their 50th anniversary last year in 2014. I am of course talking about Taylor acoustic guitars. So to really set the scene we need to go back to the late 60s and early 70s. Around this time there was a big demand for acoustic guitars, and this was down to a number of reasons, including the big folk scare in the early 60s, as well as the rise of hippie culture and the rising popularity of folk, country, and even certain rock bands using acoustic guitars such as Led Zeppelin. As a result of this big demand, even the big manufacturers such as Gibson and Martin were struggling to keep up. In 1970, two brothers, Sam and Gene Radding, started the American Dream Instrument Company and opened a shop in San Diego. Between the two of them, they would build and sell guitars. Now looking back, even then you could see the Taylor headstock shape that we've come to know now. Sometime in 1973, Sam Radding would hire Kurt Listug, followed by an 18-year-old high school graduate by the name of Bob Taylor a few weeks later. In 1974, the brothers were planning to sell the American Dream shop, so Taylor, Listug, and another employee, Steve Schemmer, borrowed money and bought the store. Now the purchase didn't include the rights to the American Dream name, so the shop was renamed to the Westland Music Company. Officially they opened the store on October 15th, however due to a burst storm drain the store was flooded, so not a great start to the new business. It was then in 1976 that the name would be changed to Taylor Guitars. It was around this time as well that Kurt Listug would start reaching out to dealers and selling directly to them. It was also around this time that Bob Taylor started to develop the bolt-on neck design that Taylor is so famous for, and which gives their guitars the unique sound. Throughout the 1970s, Taylor's notoriety would grow, with guitarists such as Neil Young playing their models. However, the late 70s and the early 80s were a tough time for the company, as acoustic guitars were falling out of the musical trends. In 1985, after experimentation with colour application, a purple 12-string jumbo was built for Prince. This would then lead to other guitarists requesting that they be built stage-friendly coloured acoustics too. In 1986, Taylor began producing their first signature model for flat-picking guitarist Dan Crary. The end of the 80s took an upturn for Taylor, and in 1989 they saw a boost as a Taylor was featured in the first episode of MTV Unplugged, a series which would then go on to boost the popularity of acoustic guitars once more. In January of 1990, the company started to embrace more modern manufacturing techniques, such as CNC milling, as well as lasers and UV curing finishes. This meant that not only did the quality and consistency of the instruments improve, but it also increased the rate at which they could produce guitars. This resulted in the introduction of the 410 model, the first American-made solid wood steel string acoustic to retail for under $1,000, coming in at $998. By the end of the 90s, the number of models that Taylor was producing had increased from 38 to 61. 1998 saw the introduction of the 300 series as well. And in the early 2000s, Taylor innovated with a more stable, micro-adjustable bolt-on neck joint. The 2000s also saw them open a second facility in Baja California, Mexico. This led to further growth and diversification of the range of guitars. In 2003, they would then introduce their Expression pickup system. This pickup system featured a preamp that was partly designed by Rupert Neve. In 2011, Bob Taylor hired Andy Powers to be his design successor, and over the course of the next decade he would go on to revoice pretty much all of the models that Taylor produced, as well as introduce a number of new body styles, as well as new architecture such as his patented V-class bracing. 2010 saw the introduction of the popular GS Mini model, as well as saw Taylor producing their 100,000th guitar. 2014 would then see the Expression pickup system updated to the Expression 2 system, which is still being used today. After a brief period in which the factories had to close down due to the COVID pandemic, the company came back with the American Dream series of guitars, with the name obviously coming from the original shop which we spoke about at the start of this video. In 2021, Bob and Kurt wanted to enact their succession plan, As part of this, the company transitioned to employee ownership, meaning that every employee of the company owns a part of it. And really that brings us up to today. Now I know in this one I focused a lot less on specific models than I normally do in these videos, but with Taylor they've produced so many different models and so many different variants that it would become a bit confusing and it would just take too long to list them all. So for this one I've just really tried to give you a brief overview of how the company developed. But that's all I've got for you today. Drop me a comment down below and let me know what your thoughts on Taylor are. I know their slightly unique tone can be a bit Marmite, so leave me your thoughts. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.